In 1997, a little game was released on the PlayStation 1 and took the entire world by storm. Final Fantasy VII showed Western audiences the beauty of the JRPG genre. It's the second best-selling game of the console and defined what PlayStation was offering to its users: maturity. The soundtrack, the characters, and the Buster Sword all became icons in gaming culture, but why does Final Fantasy VII stick out so much when games like Chrono Trigger and even Final Fantasy VI are considered to be better? I think it's largely owed to the game's Materia system. Final Fantasy VI is adored by many, so let's start by looking at that for comparison. The game cleverly introduces new gameplay mechanics to the player through its characters. These characters have their own little niches and playstyles that make them strong. Terra has her transform, Edgar has his tools, and Sabin has his blitz, just to name a few. It's up to the player to find out how these abilities work and where their abilities are best used. It's a brilliant system that gives the characters a sense of identity that's probably never even been recreated so effectively. But that strong identity is also its drawback. Each character fundamentally changes the way you have to approach a fight, which can be pretty daunting to people that have no idea what they're getting into. Or they'll just never use that character that feels super weak, which sounds like a decent workaround, but that's a constant reminder that you're not playing the game properly. That character sitting out is mocking you, telling you that, hey, you're not strong enough to understand my kit. This problem isn't just isolated to JRPGs either. Games feel the need to tell you when you didn't break all of the boxes, grab all the stars, or only got a C+ in that one mission.
C+?
These are effective ways to bring the player back, but they hinder that initial experience. There's nothing worse than working your ass off in a mission and being told that you're still not good enough. That's where the materia comes in. You start with a couple of magic spells and an all materia, just enough to get you thinking about which ones you can pair together and when to use the spells. Through the course of the game, you just keep getting more materia, making the game more complex, and before you know it, you've probably settled into the traditional black mage, white mage, and fighter composition that's so popular. Once you think you've discovered most of the system, you'll get a few curveballs like the enemy skill materia, throw, and even that flashback sequence shows you some pretty interesting possibilities as well. It presents complexity and asks if you want to indulge yourself. If you say no, that's fine, you can literally throw away the worthless materia. But those that do decide to indulge themselves will be presented with awesome power. Some of that power is basically game breaking, but that doesn't matter because the player figured it out themselves. Cheesing a boss with a strategy that you came up with is still rewarding, and if all you did was mime that quadruple summon of Knights of the Round, you're still a genius, and you deserve to beat that fight. I could sit here and name off all of the crazy materia combinations and how each piece of the puzzle doesn't do much on their own and that they're stronger together, yada yada, but I think Final Fantasy VII is popular enough that this goes without saying. Instead, I want to talk about a little unsung hero. The enemy skill materia alone has the potential of changing the way you play the game entirely. Sure, you'll get those easy ones like Matra Magic and Flamethrower if you leave it on, but those aren't really worth writing home about. Once you throw Manipulate into the mix, we have ourselves a party. First of all, you're not using Manipulate unless you have enemy skill. Together, however, these two materia reward patience and curiosity unlike any of the other ones. You'll try to manipulate every enemy you can. Next, throw all of their abilities at your party. Does any of them stick? And if they do stick, what exactly does these new skills do? Now you're approaching the game differently than most other people are, and that search you're going through won't be restrained to the boss battles. You're scouring through dungeons and talking to every single NPC. It even introduces little challenges into the game, like having to beat the big snake thing that you avoided with a chocobo to get a strong fire spell. And before you know it, you're a completionist. The entire system is designed in a way to introduce complexity at the player's pace. They can embrace this complexity or just ignore it entirely. Let me tell you about my first playthrough as a dumb kid. I never used summons. I put all of the healing magics on Tifa because she was a girl, and Cloud was just your typical black mage, while Red 13 just got whatever the hell was left, throwing things on like Sense and I don't even know what else. There was so much complexity to the materia system that I didn't even know about. The only things that I ever paired to magics were all materias, and if I couldn't put it on something, I didn't use it at all. I didn't realize I was missing out until I went over to my friend's house and he had all kinds of crazy combinations, counterattacks and double cuts and drains and stuff that I never even thought of. Thanks mostly to Final Fantasy VII, people my age got into gaming through either RPGs or platformers, meaning that there's a massive chunk of children like me and my friend just playing RPGs, which is weird because JRPGs can be a pretty daunting genre to get into. There's a lot of jargon and weird numbers on the screen that could take a lot of time to interpret. Some of them don't even try to teach it to you. They just expect you to know what HP and MP are and what happens when you use steel on an enemy and whatever the hell this symbol means. The dialogue can also be pretty cheesy and verbose too, and not to mention those spiky-haired protagonists. All of these things are reasons why people like you and I love JRPGs. Final Fantasy games even take us to the moon to embrace that cheese. Final Fantasy VII still delivers on that cheese, but in a way that's easy to swallow for newcomers, and more importantly, kids. That's why Final Fantasy VII is held so dearly in everybody's hearts. It was an entire generation's introduction to the JRPG genre. Not to mention the soundtrack is pretty baller too. And in my humble opinion, that's where the soul of the remake should be, in helping redefine the genre that has lost its footing over the past decade. You'll never recreate the magic of the first one, so give it its own modern magic. The Little Things is powered by you all on Patreon. We have had a lot of newcomers come to the channel last week, so here's a couple of links to the channel trailer and our Patreon page. They help describe what the Little Things is trying to accomplish, so I implore you all to take a look and support the channel in any way you can. Thanks for watching. My name is Tyler Gesselman. Make sure you subscribe and follow me on Twitter to find out when new episodes drop. I'm still going to try to adhere to the weekly schedule. Wednesdays may not be as set in stone as I initially promised, and I do apologize for that. I'm going through a lot of transition stuff in my personal life, so I'm trying to kind of focus on that first. But this channel is still a huge passion of mine, and I'll never stop doing these videos. So until next week, it's been a pleasure.